Hi everyone, it's Sam, NFTstatistics, and this is your Proof Daily NFT Countdown. Lots to talk about today, but I'm just going to give you the quick TLDR first. If you own Pepe coin, life is good. If you own NFTs, a little bit less so. That's the TLDR, but let's get into the data. Let's talk about the stories. We're going to talk about Opepen Edition, an update from Jack there. We're going to talk about a QQL auction I thought was pretty interesting, and a whole bunch of projects that have little news going on. Let's dive right into it, starting with a quick market overview. Volumes were up a small bit, but this was largely on Blur. OpenSea kind of continues to hit 18-month lows in terms of volume. Market share with Blur 77%. Now, this is the OpenSea chart, and I took this all the way back to mid-July 2021. And what you can see here is that OpenSea doing 4,000 ETH of volume yesterday, is really the lowest level that they've been, I think, since July 17th, 2021, right when NFTs started to take off. So we've really kind of round-tripped in a sense. Now, one thing that is hot, that is kind of the bright spot in the market right now is Pepe. That coin is up to a $128 million market cap. Last time I was on the show, yesterday, I was talking about how it completely pumped, completely mooned. And at that time, it was only a $42 million market cap. So if you thought you missed it yesterday, well, it's up 3x since then. You can see this chart just completely on fire right now for that token, which basically has no use, just a total meme. That's the way this industry seems to work. Now, one thing that's kind of gone hand in hand with that is that gas fees have gone through the roof. One of the main reasons is there is a bot that is out there just doing a lot of sandwich trading, seeing trades where people are going long Pepe, long kind of obscure tokens, buying ahead of it and selling them before the transfer or before that transaction is confirmed. One bot spent 537 ETH on gas alone yesterday. A little bit about that bot's P&L. Looks like they made about $1 million yesterday, up more than $750,000 the next day. So the strategy is working. Not sure you love it. Not sure you love to see the front running. This is a lot of the stuff that I think is problematic about the traditional world we want to get away from, but as it often goes, those problems repeat themselves. But interesting to see this, and that's why gas is so high. I tried to sell an NFT today, and the gas fee was $60. I felt like we were back in the bull market. Alas, we're not. Looking at prices, let's jump in here. You can see that large cap index was down 2.5%. I threw two arrows on here. I mean, this has just been one of the most precipitous falls I've seen in NFTs since I started tracking data 2 years ago. Now, there are two arrows here. One is pacing up, and that is when Blur Airdrop Season 2 started on February 14th. And you can see that after that, we had a little bit of a rally, something like 6 or 7%. People got a lot of that token. They were being paid to bid to get more, had a lot of liquidity, bought up NFTs. And all those bids, I think, just absorbed a ton of supply from more patient, longer-term holders who wanted to sell. And I think what's happened is that once the NFTs get in that pool where they're mainly passed around between traders, it becomes very intimidating to want to step in there and buy one or two when you see so much supply of NFTs that's being passed between traders. Just kind of makes people not want to buy. And we've seen that really play out over the past 2 months. It's really just been straight down for this large cap index. Looking at the individual components for the index, CloneX was up about 8%. Everything else was down pretty sharply. We're going to dive into CloneX because I think this is an interesting example of what I was just talking about. Now, CloneX, again, this is one of the projects that's had one of the biggest downturns, but over the past few days, maybe 3 or 4 days, it's gone from about 2 ETH to 2.9 ETH. You can see it a little bit more pronounced on this chart, I guess 2.2 ETH to 2.9 ETH. I wanted to dig in a little bit here and see who are the buyers, who are the sellers that are leading to this rally. And I looked at who the biggest buyers were, who bought the most NFTs that they still hold. And you can see the biggest one has bought 121 clones over the past 4 days. The second biggest one has only bought 10. But if you look at those two wallets, that biggest one over the past 3 months has also sold 439 clones. That second one who bought 10 has also sold 55 clones. So we know that the biggest players driving this momentum, driving this pump, are people who sell clones, and I think that that's where the risk is. So we know that they're going to do it again with the NFTs that they're long. Makes these really, really risky to kind of get into because you just know there's so much supply coming around the corner. In terms of mid caps also down, basically same chart. If you go back to February 16th, it's been even a steeper fall really over the past 2 months for this index. Pretty much everything was down yesterday. The one component that was up was Opepen Edition. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And then VV checks were kind of leading on the way down, also from that Jack Butcher ecosystem. In terms of profit and loss for traders, flippers, we can see that over the past 5 days, you've had about -100 to -300 ETH of P&L losses. Most of those losses have come from projects like Nakamigos, Outlaws and a few projects that were strong a bit last week and giving back a bit of those gains today. A couple projects I wanted to zoom in on that had some interesting news. First, Trump cards. You can see in this tweet, Trump announced that he is going to be doing another series edition. This caught the market completely by surprise because he had a huge raise where he launched Series 1, and those had gone from 0.1 to 0.4 ETH. One of the better performing NFTs really out there that's recently launched, but this showed, that there's more supply coming and perhaps those Series 1 guys aren't going to be getting too much recognition, too much special treatment. Who knows? The result was probably the biggest fall I have seen in one day for an NFT. The project went from 0.43 to 0.13, down 70%. One thing I've shown some research on is that the numbers suggest that NFTs tend to they crash higher. You see big moves higher when a ton of FOMO hits at once, but when they go lower, they tend to grind lower. So that's normally the process. But here you had a real crash lower, I think, because there was this surprising news. In terms of the art for Series 2, it's a bit more ornate, a bit more out there, some really kind of wacky, weird art that they're showing for Donald Trump. But I think that's what they're going for. More laughs, more virality, a bit more craziness. Now, the Series 2 already did sell out. And you can see here that Series 2 did sell out. They raised $4.6 million. They're trading at $115 now. They went at $100, but a lot of damage to Series 1 in that process. And then the last project I want to call out is Milady. You can see here just another spike to 2.3 ETH. I always have a hard time understanding what drives Milady up or down. Very volatile project, lots of sweeps, lots of dumps, stuff like that. But in this case, you did see Nick Carter and a few people from crypto Twitter. Nick Carter is an influencer in crypto Twitter, less so in NFT Twitter, over 300,000 followers. He changed his PFP to a Milady. Stuff like that can have an impact. So interesting to see that. In terms of art projects, a bunch of volume in Chromie Squiggles. Unfortunately, it was mainly finding new lows. Saw a bunch of trades at the 8 to 9 ETH range. Beyond that, a couple Unigrids trades. Not a whole lot more, doing more than 10 ETH of volume. Digging a little deeper, a pipe squiggle sold for 28.5 ETH. Pipes tend to be some of the grails there. Normally been trading in the 30 to 50 ETH range. Not too surprising to see a little bit lower there. A couple Unigrids sold. This one here for 6.1 ETH. A Memories of Chi-Lin for 4 ETH, slightly below the floor. And then over in Braindrops, a Genesis by Claire Silver sold for 7.5 ETH. Remember, that project had a 22 ETH floor just a couple months ago. So that's really come down, but still can't complain about a 7.5 ETH sale for that project. Second thing to talk about, QQL Auction Sales. And this happened, these QQLs were sold by Pace Verso. Pace Verso is a well-known gallery in New York, also really trending into art blocks through their collaboration with art blocks and much more into Web3. They announced that they were going to auction off a few QQLs, and they were going to have those QQLs be designed by some of the best-known artists in the space. A few that they had were Claire Silver, William Apan, Loie Hollowell, Grant Yoon, a couple others. And you can see here that those auctions ended up selling kind of, in some for 5, the Grant Yoon for 5, the Claire Silver for 7.7, Loie Hollowell for 8 ETH. Loie Hollowell is one of the best known NFT artists kind of in the traditional art world. So not too surprising to see hers sell so well. I think there is a little bit of friction here. Not a ton of people knew about these auctions. And also you had to go through a KYC process where you submitted your driver's license, stuff like that, which can turn off some people who are into NFTs. Here are 2 more, Tara Donovan and William Apan for 3 and 4.1 ETH. The reason I thought these were pretty interesting is because the floor for QQLs is 5.85 ETH. And what we saw here is that a couple of these really well-known artists, people who should have a little bit more provenance, selling below that floor price. And this just goes with everything that I've been saying recently, is that with art blocks right now and with art in general, there's just not a ton of liquidity. So when you have these auctions and sales have to happen, you sometimes see those floors, those prices move a little bit below the floor, or in some of these cases, a lot below the floor, a couple of them for 30, 40% below the floor, just in line with what we've seen on art blocks. As I pointed out, liquidity is often well below floor, as I say here. Still nice to see those sales happen though, and those are really cool QQL. So congrats to the buyers there. Third thing I want to talk about is Opepen Evolution. The reason I highlighted today is that Jack wrote a pretty long thread about where Opepen is going and laid out a bit of the detail for what you can expect from the mint. Here is a first image, and there's really kind of this overall AI theme combined with the Opepen art, the Opepen shape that he really has made iconic. In the thread, Jack says that his intention with his work as a creator is the preservation of moments in time driven by big technological shifts, and he did that with Chex. Chex was all about this concept of the disruption of top-down institutional trust. That was what he really focused on. He's trying to figure out, how do I do that with Opepens as well? It started out with him just saying, let's just do colorful variations and add a torso to the art. But now it's more, let's map an infinite number of combinations of visual consciousness onto a recognizable symbol. And I think what he's trying to do is really, you kind of layer that AI onto the symbol, mark where we are in this moment of time. Just doing the different colors didn't quite have that impact of marking the moment in time as the AI does. Here are some of the outputs he's created. He says he's already done nearly 10,000 prompts trying to create outputs. That one on the left is the first one he did. That one on the right is one of the more recent. And he also said that he's going to up the total quantity to 16,000. That means adding 6 more to the collection. And he did that by dropping them to people who hold single checks. There's 17 holders. He's one of them, though. And I think he dropped to the other 16 a new Opepen edition. And then with 16,000, he can do these drops of AI Opepens to the holder base. To summarize, he had a summary thread where he said what he's going to do is 200 drops. Okay, and each drop is going to have 80 different pieces of art that are going to be revealed to Opepen edition holders. They're going to convert that Opepen edition into one that has permanent metadata, and they are going to give earlier privilege, earlier priority, which means lower serial numbers to checks holders, so reward people who have the checks in the wallet. I think that's the basic idea. Should be kind of interesting. Not sure about timing. Jack is obviously always changing his thoughts and changing the direction, but I think that this feels like a pretty set in stone way to go. There were also a couple quotes in his thread that I thought were just awesome quotes. I figured I'd read them here because Jack's always hitting us with great knowledge, and I thought it was cool. One thing he said is, if we all operated with the mentality that we only need to capture a small percentage of the value we create a lot more value. This was in response to people saying a lot of people are using the Opepen art. I personally changed my PFP to an Opepen, even though I personally don't own an Opepen, because I thought the art was cool and I wanted to add my colors onto it. And he's basically saying, like, these are good things. The more people talking about it, I don't need to capture all the value. The more people talking about, the more awareness we get. And that's the second quote he says here. We are competing for attention with multi-billion-dollar venture-backed brands, and without permissionless, distributed, creative efforts, it's very hard to stay on people's feed. So really, the more people talking about it, and the more people using the art, the better. And ideally, that value accrues back to holders. Let's look a little bit at how the price has performed. You can see it's actually been pretty flat over the past 3 or 4 weeks. I was talking earlier about how, broadly speaking, we're seeing NFTs go down. This is one that's held its own for a little bit. Opepen's also at their highest ratio relative to checks that they've ever been. So Opepen's kind of gaining some of that Jack Butcher audience mindshare. Last thing I wanted to talk about is a few notable sales. Not a whole lot of big super rare sales today, but a few big ones in Azuki. This first one, this Azuki, the Spirit, sold for 161 ETH. This was actually traded on Blur. Someone listed it on Blur and someone bought it pretty quickly. If you look at the 4 most recent Spirit sales, you had that one at 245, which was Pimp Capital picking an NFT he liked and just liking the aesthetics and paying up for it. But relative to the other Azuki Spirits, this is pretty much in line with the prices that we've been seeing. You also saw yesterday a Golden Cat Kigu sold for 171 ETH. This was bought by Pimp Capital. Pimp Capital is just someone who picks the NFTs he likes and buys them. This is the most expensive gold Kigu ever. You've seen Spirits above this, but you've never seen a gold Kigu at this price. So congrats to the buyer there as well as the seller. And then one piece of art I wanted to talk about, this piece, Barcode by Beverly Kills, sold for 3 ETH. I personally really like Beverly Kills. The artist says that art should comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable. Here are a few of the other pieces. You can see these machine guns with crayons in the magazines, a couple others that have sold in that 3.5 to 4.5 ETH range. So 3 ETH sale, pretty close to that range, not bad for the market we're in. Beverly Kills also has an NFT that they currently have on auction. This piece, Verified Shopper, they're auctioning with a reserve of 2 ETH. There hasn't been a buyer yet, so if you do like it, if you think this is cool, go ahead and bid on that. That's all from me today. I hope you liked the show. If you did like it, give us a like below, subscribe to the channel, and comment. Tell us what you think. There's a lot going on. I miss a lot of it. Would love to hear what you think I should be talking about. We'll be back tomorrow and every weekday with another show. Have a great day.